EDF is the cult series of B-movie inspired shooters, and the latest edition has taken a very different turn. Going for voxel style graphics, does World Brothers still retain the classic well of gameplay, or spin off in the wrong direction? Let's find out. Now firstly, I just want to point out that this review is a joint review between myself and Miguel Marin, a regular contributor of ours. He played this back when it released in Japan because he can understand Japanese, and I played a good handful of hours on the Western release. So he's helping me out during a very busy time. These are mostly his words with a smattering of mine, and you all love a good smattering of Jordan. It's a busy time, guys. Very, very busy. He's also played most of the games in the series, and me, well, I'm a disappointment to my family. EDF World Brothers tells the gripping tale of a soldier with a tragic past trying to find his place on this devastated post-apocalyptic world. It's a story full of drama, full of mystery, full of revelation. You blow shit up. You launch RPGs into the face of giant ants. Stories in the EDF games have always been nothing more than an excuse to shoot bugs and aliens in the face, blowing the crap out of things, and this is no exception. The game retains the silly tone of all EDF games, although I feel that this time it's gone for a more cartoony vibe than previous ones. Not just in the visuals, but in its dialogue as well. Some of the humor feels a little bit forced at times, but it's easy to get used to, and I'm sure a younger audience will love it. This game also has plenty of references to older titles, with both characters and locales from previous games making appearances, which I'm sure fans of the series will very much appreciate. If you thought the premise was simple, wait until you hear about its gameplay. You start a mission, you kill all the bugs and aliens, get slight upgrades and new gear, and repeat. That's it, and I would not have it any other way. This is what EDF is all about. What makes EDF games so special though is their escalation in insanity. During the first mission, you will probably have little more than a rifle that feels like a pea shooter, but by the end you'll have gathered a massive arsenal, piloted flame-throwing mechas, and even punched Godzilla right in the knackers. 10 out of 10. New to this game are the brothers and sisters. Unlike previous games, instead of picking one single class, you get to bring 4 members to each mission. This adds a lot of flavor to how you tackle each mission, and there are close to no restrictions. Want a full Air Rider squad and rain terror on every ant to ever exist? You go for it, sunshine. During the mission, you can swap between the 4 at any point, even mid-air, and the game encourages this by having relatively long reload times, forcing you to mix up your approach. The brothers and sisters also mean a change in the way that gear is obtained. In previous games, you would do so by collecting boxes that the enemies dropped after being killed, which, if you successfully finish the mission, would then show up as mission rewards. In EDF World Brothers, however, the boxes dropped by enemies will only heal you or refill your special move gauge. To gain new weapons, or in this game's case new characters, you will have to rescue your fallen brothers and sisters by simply holding the rescue button next to them. Each mission will spawn 3 of them around the map for you to collect, and they show up on your minimap, so they're fairly easy to find. This collectathon theme is, in all honesty, kind of brilliant. Jumping into a mission was always exciting, thinking about, ooh, which one will I get this time? Probably in no small part thanks to how varied and unique the bros and hoes, I apologize for that, the brothers and sisters are. Barring the occasional color palette swap, they have their own unique weapon as well as movement techniques. You have staples of the series like the wing divers flying around with their jetpacks, characters that appeared in spin-offs like the Prowl Rider swinging with their grappling hook, and completely new characters like Kung Fu Fighter that soars the skies riding a cloud thinking he's Goku from Dragon Ball. Not only that, but they have their own special moves, which gives each character their own role within the battle. Plus, the more you use a character, the more they will level up and grow stronger, allowing you to equip them with all different types of weapons and crazy loadouts. It is, however, this progression system where the game has its biggest misstep. While you can level up your brothers and sisters by chance if you rescue one that you already had, the only way to increase their HP is by actively bringing them to a mission. In other words, only the 4 members of your squad that you brought to the mission will get their HP increased, which means if you want a squad that's viable for later missions as well as harder difficulties, you will most likely stick to the same 4 or 5 characters, completely defeating the purpose of collecting them. Now, just to be clear though, if you want to play this game exclusively on normal or even hard difficulty, this won't be too much of a problem. But EDF games have always shined the brightest in their hardest and inferno difficulties, since missions will change what type of enemies you will face there. Wait, I think Miguel is implying that reviewers play on difficulties higher than easiest? What's that all about? The enemy variety has always been a strong point in the EDF series, and this is no exception. They all require their own unique approach to be dealt with, so each combination of enemies feels and plays extremely different from each other. The roster itself is made of enemies from previous games, with quite a few fan favorites making return. Probably the biggest missing omission, however, are the frogs and the armored aliens from EDF 5, which is rather unfortunate because they were fantastic new additions to the series. There's also a couple of things I should probably mention for veterans of the series. First off is the vehicles. They can no longer be summoned, they are instead tied to the missions themselves. What this means is that they only appear in a select few missions completely outside of the player's will. This was honestly a considerable disappointment. Some of my fondest moments in EDF were the shenanigans you could pull off with vehicles, like driving around on a tank with a handful of turrets strapped to it. Furthermore, there are no flying vehicles in EDF World Brothers, nor vehicles with multiple player controllable seats, so it's a bit of a downgrade in that respect. Next thing is how the wing divers now control. In the mainline EDF games, tilting the movement stick horizontally would make your character strafe. In World Brothers, however, they will turn and face whichever direction you are pointing towards. This seems rather insignificant, but it drastically changes the way the wing divers feel. Gone is the smooth maneuvering, since now moving left or right will suddenly yank her into that direction. Plus the jetpack and ammo are no longer linked, so ammo management is not really a thing here. But not everything is bad news. The online component is back and is just as good as it ever has been. You can create and join a lobby, store up to 10 squad loadouts, and customize your own squad with emblems. These emblems actually work as in-game achievements, asking you, for example, to defeat certain amount of enemies or revive certain amount of allies. I'm also pleased to say that the quick chat feature is back in all its full glory. Multiplayer is where the game is at its strongest, and if you can convince a bunch of friends to play this together, I can guarantee you will have a great time. Unfortunately, the Switch version has no split screen, but to compensate, it does include local wireless multiplayer. Now, in regard to gyro controls, it is bittersweet, I would say. The game does include this feature, but its implementation is not the greatest. You can choose between just vertical or both vertical and horizontal gyro controls. However, using gyro will disable your vertical camera stick controls. Personally, I prefer it when gyro controls supplement regular stick controls, but at the very least, the option is more or less there. Visually, I think this is a little bit controversial. The series, previously known for its somewhat realistic art style, and yes, I struggle to say that with a straight face considering you're blowing up giant alien ants. Some will find it charming, others will find it too childish. It's honestly completely subjective, and no review will ever change anyone's mind. However, one thing I want to applaud the game for is how cohesive it all is. This might be due to the simplistic visual design, but there's nothing here that feels out of place. From the UI to the character design, it's clear that there was a vision as well as a lot of care put into how this game looks. But let's talk about the juicy question, the performance. In short, it's not great, but probably not as bad as one would have expected. Some very obvious compromises had to be made for this game to run on the Switch. The resolution can get blurry at times, enemies in the distance have their animation frames halved, and the FPS during the more intense missions visibly drops below like 20 FPS, which is basically one of my PowerPoint presentations to my students. However, it is not as unplayable as it may seem. Plenty of weapons have quite generous auto-aim, which makes aiming surprisingly doable even when the game is at its worst performance-wise. Maybe the PS4 version holds up better, but we don't know. EDF World Brothers sound design is just as loud and bombastic as you'd expect. The soundtrack itself is surprisingly varied, and the main theme will probably be stuck in your head for a while. One thing worth mentioning is that the brothers and sisters love to talk, like a lot. I think they are charming in their own way, but if it becomes too unbearable, you can always mute them in the options. Now, there is no way around it. EDF World Brothers is a full price release, 60 of your finest US dollars and euros. But before we judge the pricing, let's look at the game's content. The game has 60 missions with 5 difficulties that add a lot of variety. And plenty, and I do mean plenty, of characters to collect. I believe that if the game gets a healthy enough multiplayer fan base, then that pricing would be fair. Although I do find it rather amusing that this series started very much as a budget affordable price release. The original game was part of D3's Simple series, 2000 specifically, so it was about $20 back in the day for the first release. How times have changed. In North America and Europe, this is a digital-only title. There is no physical version that's been announced. In Japan, it did get a physical last year, but no English. However, may I divert your attention to the Southeast Asian version of EDF that will have English, at least according to sources online and Play Asia. So, if you're interested in having a physical Switch cartridge and you're a collector and you want to own this physically, like keep it forever and have some value in your hands, then perhaps it's something worth importing for you. If you want to import, then check the links below in the description and the pinned comment. If you click those links, it'll take you to where you need to grab it. Plus, you can also massively help support the SwitchWatch team out at the same time. Thank you for your amazing support as always. Plus, in return, if you use our links, then you can also get a very swell 5% off if you use the coupon code SwitchWatchTV. That's all one word, SwitchWatchTV, while checking out, and you get 5% off any physical item from Play Asia. Overall, so for this review, we had to think about if this would be a good entry point for the series for newcomers. And while there's no definitive answer, I think it's maybe a no. But don't get us wrong, there is a lot of fun to be had here, even more so if you play with others. But when comparing it to the glory of the more recent mainline entries in the series, this game falls short somewhat. There are a lot of good ideas here, some are well implemented, some others not so much. But even with all its flaws, the game does occasionally show those sparks of pure chaotic brilliance that only EDF can deliver, and for that alone it may be worth giving it a shot, especially since it's currently the only EDF game on the Switch. Just make sure to keep your expectations low and enjoy shooting giant ants in the face. Mayrin, he gave it a 6 out of 10, although maybe it's the most fun 6 out of 10 you'll ever play. Personally, I think I had a lot more fun with it. Maybe it's because it's my first EDF, but for me, this is an easy 7.5 out of 10. Despite a few rough edges, it is a lot of fun. Alright, many thanks to Miguel for helping me out with this review. Lucky that dude can read Japanese. Remember, if you want to get a physical version of this, click the link in the description. Many thanks to our executive producers Dane Wilkinson, God of Resident, Boombox, Brent McLean, Jonathan Room, Organicus, Santa Tartaruga, Alolan Jojo, Alexander Cato, J Crod 7776, Elissa, Punky Dooster, Michael Del Polito, Cigar Trucker, Cartoon Soren, and Jack Severus, plus you, yes you, watching right now. If you watched all the way through, you are as cool as the EDF series. Let me know who you are, because you are the people who help the channel grow. Give me a bug emoji in the comments so I can spot the legends amongst you. Here are some of our other stuff. EDF!